All right, welcome to Pure Truth Podcast. Today we are talking about how um, it does not take millions of years, um, and so what's the topic on that? Well, um, the topic is on animals and their kinds. Um, there are scientists out there who will say that we from one cell, evolved into this and then evolved into that, and it take like over millions and millions of years. Excuse me. And then now we have humans and different creatures like that and stuff like that. Well, I am here to tell you that that is false, and that there is evidence of me telling you that that is false. Here is the evidence. I mean, because like that's what we have to do is we have to follow the evidence, right? That's what they will say is follow the evidence. Well, they don't really have hardly any evidence really about what they claim. Um, because here's a question that I have for the scientists: how did we evolve out of just one cell, um, one living organism? Because we know science has told us that you cannot get a cat from a dog. You cannot get a different living organism from another living organism. Meaning, a dog comes from a dog. And that's a living organism, uh, like a dog. You can only get a dog from a dog. You can only get a cat from a cat. So, how do you get a cat from one living organism? How do you get people, cats, dogs, monkeys, sheep, bears? How do you get all these different um, animals and their kinds? How do you get different kinds of animals from just one living organism? We know you cannot do that. That is impossible because you do not get a different kind from, you don't get a bear from a lion. You're going to get a lion from a lion. You can only, um, a bear can only breed like a black bear. Now you can get a different kind of bear if a black bear was to breed with a grizzly bear. You can get a different kind of bear species, but it's still going to be a bear. And so throughout creation, life itself is just so complex. You are not, and that's something that they don't think about, is how complex life is. Life is so complex. You have so many different cells. Each and every person and every animal, even animals within their kind, even though for humans it's kind of hard to um, tell the difference between this lion and that lion. Well, I'm sure they're able to clearly tell the difference. You know, it might be um, this lion might have some spots and this lion doesn't. But what I'm saying is it's so complex. There you got cells and stuff um, that there's no way we could come from one living cell. But then, second, um, what I have been mentioning earlier was, or what I'm, getting down to is, you have so many different animals and their kinds, and that you do not get a giraffe from a canine. Um, and that's something that they're not going to be able to explain, um, right, or find any answers to. Um, so, and here's the deal. They want to say that it took millions of years, right? Well, go back to what I just said about breeding, about a bear um, being bred with a, like a black bear being bred with a grizzly bear. You're going to instantly, boom, like that, you're going to get a different kind. So it doesn't take millions of years just to get to a different kind, or like, because that's one, we know that that's how we get a different bear kind. We get a different kind of bear is by a grizzly mating with a black bear, and you're going to get a different kind. So um, that does not take millions of years. I mean, that seriously only takes, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's for a reason, is, I mean, that's literally all it takes is one grizzly mating with one black bear. You're going to get a different species. It doesn't have to take millions of years. And we know that. We know that we just, so the idea that we have taken millions of years, it's just a crazy thought. There's no evidence to support that. Um, Now that we have science, and science knows that that's all it takes is for a black bear to mate with a grizzly, you're going to get a different species. Excuse me. There's really no room to believe that we uh, have taken millions and billions of years to get here. Um, maybe it's about time to believe the Bible that maybe God created everything in 6 days. Um, that maybe it is possible with the breath of God, things can just spontaneously sprout up, and that it doesn't have to take millions of years, because we know that that's all it takes is one grizzly mating with one black bear, obviously male mating with female, or female mating with male, um but we do know that a cat cannot, you cannot breed a cat with a dog. That's not going to happen. You have to breed feline with a feline. And so that's what I'm saying is, if you take a bear species, the bear species, and grizzly, and made it with a black bear, obviously from the opposite sex, because if you don't know by now, that's how you create life. Um, yeah, you're gonna end up with a different bear kind of bear. Um, so it doesn't have to take millions of years. In fact, it didn't take millions of years. Um, and then, so another thing, you know, like they say that it took, millions of years to create mountains and these really tall hills and things like that. Well, um, because nobody wants to acknowledge the flood. I mean, it's funny because, like, if you look at a flood, I mean, or like any natural disaster will tell you it does not have to take millions of years just to create a mountain. And so that's what the global flood, the Genesis flood is well, it's pretty much a natural disaster created, obviously created by God, but a natural disaster that happened worldwide. And so, what happened with the flood is the ground broke open, water spruit up from the ground, right? Um, you know that when you dig for when you create a well, you dig down to find the water source. And when you find that water source, water does pop out of the ground. And the creationists and the evolutionists will both agree that the world is created or founded on water. Um, I mean, that's pretty obvious if you go back to what I just said about the digging for wells, and you dig down far enough and you find the water source, it's going to come out of that ground. And so that's what happened when with the flood is the earth broke open and the water just, you know, like a fountain, like actually more than just like a fountain. It was like a, like a volcano erupting. Think of a volcano erupting, water just erupting out of the ground as the ground split, right? And then, yeah, of course, you do have the rain. Um, and then once you have the earth basically as covered in all of this water, think of a ginormous ocean. Well, what does a storm look like in the ocean? A storm is pretty violent. It's pretty violent in the ocean. And so if you talk about a global flood that is, you know, every piece of land is underwater. One, first, it started out with land splitting apart and water just gushing up like a volcano erupts up from the earth. Um, then and then you also have the rain, but then you have the earth after all of that, that is covered, and you basically have a storm, a ginormous storm that would be in the ocean. You have waves crashing into waves for I don't know, like 6 7 months of that, maybe even longer. And then that is how you have these um, mountains, right? That's how you get layers on top of layers. But that's something that they that the scientists do not want to admit, because if they admit that, then they have to say that the Genesis story is true. That's something that they're not going to say. They're not going to say that the Genesis story is true, because then that makes the Bible true. And you have to say that the Genesis flood is a lie, and that basically destroys all the evidence of the rest of the Bible being true, right? And so you attack the Genesis flood, you can basically kill the rest of the what is in the Bible, you know. Um, and you can say that it's false, but it's not false. You just follow the evidence. The evidence is right there. I mean, you look at what a natural disaster can do and how it can bring about change. Um, One thing that I saw during all these floods is on the news. There was one time I was, you know, just a news station was showing a video that somebody sent in, and I forget what news station it was, but they sent in a video of a there was a flood somewhere, and the ground underneath this house fell, and the entire house fell into the water, because the earth just the there was so much flooding that the earth gave way, right? And in an instant, that earth gave way, that house was gone. Luckily, those people were not there at that house, but you can see from that, just from that, how quickly water changes, how quickly a natural disaster changes things, right? And that's my point here. My point is that a natural disaster happens, right? And the landscape is changed, forever changed. And that's what I'm saying, is it does not have to happen over millions of years for mountains to um, form. That's all it takes, is a massive flood, a massive flood. Then after that, you have waves crashing into waves. And these waves are carrying, mind you, carrying rocks, dirt, soil, trees, plants, um, and they are, and dead animals, mind you, and they're all crashing into one another, and piles of dirt and rock and these dead animals are all being deposited in different areas of the throughout this world as this flood is happening. And well, voila, you're going, obviously, if you see water, we think the power of the water is like underrated or something, or and really we should, I don't know, like, or we think it's overrated, actually, excuse me, but really, we we are undermining the power of water. And that's what I'm saying, is let's not undermine the power, the force that water has, especially when the whole globe is underwater. And how can we not think that the whole globe never was flooded? Oh, it was never flooded. Really? I mean, after all of these floods happen in the United States, and I keep on hearing more and more floods here in the U.S. Um, this summer, you're hearing about these floods in different parts of the United States, and I'm going, how can people not think that there was a global flood? I mean, floods do happen, right? We never seen a global flood, but we do know that floods happen, and when floods happen, they can take out land that then takes out a house because the land just crumbles because the water is rushing, you know, um, and that land just collapses. Well, you take that to a globally, you take that globally, global wide flood. I mean, you turn a small little town flood into a giant global flood, you're going to get a lot more land to crash, to collapse. Um, and that global flood is going to be able to lift the heaviest rocks and the heaviest boulders. Um, and then as those waves crash, it's depositing those rocks and dirt and soil and trees and grass and dead animals and dead humans, um, bones. And yeah, so that's how I mean, it's not crazy. I don't know why people think that creationists or people that believe the Genesis story are, Christians. I don't know why they believe we are crazy. How can we be crazy? The evidence is right there. Um, you can see the evidence. The evidence shows that it did not take millions of years for we did not start out, there's no evidence that we started out as one cell. And you can't get I mean, a monkey can't come from a bear, so there's no evidence that we came from monkeys. Um, and then I just proved that how you can get a different kind of bear just like that if that's all it takes is a grizzly mating with a black bear. um so I just showed how it does not take millions of years to all of a sudden get all these creatures, animals, and their kinds. um And then it doesn't take millions of years to create mountains. Um, I hope if you have seen or that you, if you're watching, you enjoyed. Um, like always, I have forgotten to say please like, share, and subscribe. Um, and in fact, actually share this with 3 people. Um, I promise one of these days I am going to get better at reminding you guys of liking, sharing with 3 people, and hit the subscribe button. One of these times I will um, get better at that. That is actually all that I had discussed for today. I actually hope that you have enjoyed this. I hope that you have found it educational. Um, and well, hope to see you next time on Pure Truth Podcast.